Hello and welcome to the YXC podcast. My name is Jason and I will be your X-ray tech for today. I'm so excited for our guest today. We have Jennifer Lindsey, ultrasound business coach. She's the host of Talking Tech Podcast, a sonographer's guide to entrepreneurship. Very powerful podcast. Brings industry insight, mindset, productivity and business tips and tricks and inspiration to help you design and start your business of your dreams. She's on Instagram at Advanced Imaging Inc. She's on YouTube. She's got a website, aic-ultrasound.com/social. I'm going to go ahead and add all those links to the podcast and all the descriptions below. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Jen, how are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's start with your ultrasound business coach. Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, what can you tell us about what you do and how you got started in
Sure.
starting your own ultrasound business?
Sure, absolutely. Well, it's funny because before we started right now, Jason and I were just talking about a little bit, behind the scenes, and I'm actually not a sonographer myself. I know that comes as a shock to a lot of people, just being in the industry for so long, but we actually started as an ultrasound facility. I knew from the get-go, my partner and I were just kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit, and doing something in healthcare, I think we all learned too from 2020, that's the place to be, right? Even when things are going not the way we really want them to go, being in healthcare is the place to be. And I've got kind of some things I can talk about through that too, and pivoting and all of that. But we knew we wanted to be in healthcare. It was something that really spoke to us. And so we started an ultrasound facility because nearly 20 years ago, mobile ultrasound wasn't really a thing. Been doing this for way too long. So we started as a facility, and kind of our goal, we thought, was to have an imaging center, right, where we were going to do X-ray and ultrasound and maybe CT and MRI. That was kind of our idea in our head. And so we, of course, put pen to paper for months and months before starting our business, opened up our facility, and really absolutely loved it. We did a lot of 3D pregnancy ultrasounds. We did diagnostic ultrasound, and then started to add in, additional types of modalities of ultrasound as well, kind of as we started to grow. We really kind of switched the thought of an imaging center when ultrasound systems started getting smaller. And once they got smaller and it made more sense, we thought, hey, we're seeing a percentage, right, of the patients at our referring physician practices, but other patients are going to the hospital, they're going to other imaging centers. If we went out to the physician practice, we could get almost 100% then of their ultrasound patients, because we could set it up where we're going in, a couple days a week or a couple days a month, whatever their patient load requires, and really see, almost 100% of their actual patients. And so we went to our healthcare attorneys with that idea and spent $1 billion getting all those contracts figured out. And so added on, that was kind of our next revenue source then for our company, was mobile ultrasound. And I'll tell you from experience, not starting, even though we had a business plan put together, but not starting something that's a franchise, or not starting something where you're kind of getting coached as to what to do, it can be rough. So those first few years was a lot of painstaking, trying things out for a few months to see if they would work, realizing they were really stupid ideas and having to pivot to something else. But gosh, after, really working hard, doing things over and over again, and figuring out a really good strategic plan, we kind of had it, and I think that's such a wonderful feeling when you feel like, gosh, we've really got a strategic plan, a real framework here to grow. And so over the years have, of course, added in additional divisions of our company, one of which is where I spend almost all my time today, is in our ultrasound business coaching division. And we started that really to help people not do the same things we did and not make all the same mistakes we did when we first started. And so I love being able to do that. I think, the majority of our clients are those wanting to start a mobile ultrasound business, but I've got clients, that are not sonographers. I've got clients that are in other areas like X-ray or, other types of imaging that want to start businesses similar to that, but doing multiple different types of modalities. We have an ultrasound education center. We've just grown over the years, and it's been so fun to do that.
That's
a lot.
incredible. Yes, that's a lot. That's a lot, but that's amazing. I mean, that is so cool. And then to see all the opportunities that there are available, right? You don't just have to limit yourself. And I mean, when you first got started in your initial business, did you think it would turn the way it is today?
No.
No.
And I think that's one of the best pieces of advice that I can give to people is sometimes when you're thinking about your business, you have down on paper exactly what you wanted it to look like. I mean, we did. We wanted to have an imaging center with multiple modalities of imaging, and it literally looks nothing like that today. And so I think going into your business, understanding that the way that you want to set it up, then the way that you think it's going to be set up is perfect. You have to have that to be able to start. But understanding that once you get into the business itself and you start learning more about what your community actually needs and wants, and then feeling confident and comfortable in saying, okay, well, I think, we're going down this lane a little bit more, and now we're pivoting to this lane, I think is a wonderful way to really look at your business as you're growing, because the real way to have unlimited revenue potential in your business is to really pay attention, like I said, to what your community needs and wants, and looking at how to add that. I'll give you an example. So when we first started our mobile side of the business, somehow I was the one going out to sell our services to doctors. Now, Jason, I have zero sales experience. I was scared to death. I absolutely hated it. I tell the story a lot to my clients because they're all in the same boat when they first start marketing to their doctors. And they feel like they're the only ones that would be nervous. Like, why am I feeling nervous? And I remind them, this is absolutely normal because we're doing something outside our comfort zone. And I think that's where the magic happens, is when you need to do something for your business. You're not comfortable doing it, but you do it anyway, because that is what is actually going to move the needle forward. I mean, I would sit in my car, chew my nails, half the time near have tears in my eyes, getting ready to walk into a meeting with physicians and just praying that it was all going to go okay. Now, today I could walk in and talk with, a room full of doctors, and it wouldn't faze me at all because I've done it over and over and over again. And I kind of liken it to school. Like, think about when you first, I know you've got a lot of students that listen to the podcast. Think about when you very first start school. That's nerve-wracking. It's scary. It's brand new. You need to do a good job, right? Just like you need to do a good job at the stuff for your business. And once you get in though, and you start doing those things, it becomes more and more and more comfortable. And I think that's a big tip as well, is just understanding that those hard things are things that you have to do to move that needle forward, and being able to do that. But what I would see a lot of times is I would go out and speak with our physicians. And at the time we had one option for them. So we had contracts. The doctors had to bill insurance because we weren't set up to bill insurance. The doctors had to bill. We would charge a service fee. And of course, we had some doctors that were like, I don't want to bill. I don't want to do that, right? And I was actually just talking to a client about this yesterday because she had this exact same thing happen to her. And instead of, because I think what you can do, I talk about mindset a lot, what you can do is say, well, I have the wrong business model. This is not going to work because this doctor said, no, they don't want to do it this way. Maybe I should stop marketing. I'm going to try to see if I can switch what I'm doing. And that is the absolute wrong mindset. What I started to do was, instead of looking at those as, that I should change my business model or that they were, a no was a bad thing, I started writing down all those doctors that didn't want to bill. And I started thinking, I'm starting to get quite a big list here. Now, of course, we were also getting clients that, didn't care about that. And they thought that was great because they could add some revenue into their practice. And so we were gaining clients over there, but I still had a list of my no's. No, unless you guys bill. And so that was the next division of our company that we brought in. We set things up where we could bill. And then I went back to that list of no's and got, quite a few of those people right away to start working with us. And so I think that's something important as well, is just understanding that no's don't always mean no forever. They might mean no for right now, and looking at those as opportunities for growth in the future, I think is a really good way to look at it. Good mindset to have.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, to be an entrepreneur is risk, you're taking a lot of risk.
Yep.
A lot of times it's what's the term I'm looking for? Like an educated risk,
Yes.
calculated risk kind of
Yep.
deal, but still doesn't guarantee anything. But you won't know until you take a risk, right?
Exactly.
Like any venture that you're going to take, there's some risk involved. There's certain feelings involved, but you shouldn't let that hold you back, right?
Exactly.
So I love the positivity. And I think a lot of people could use that kind of encouragement to say, like, it's okay to move forward and feel a certain way. And
Yep.
that's success from just an imaging center, which by itself is a huge thing. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. That's amazing to start your own imaging center. I see the need for mobile. I did mobile myself. I did it for almost 7 years. I loved it. I've been in the imaging centers, and I always say mobile is a different animal. You got to treat it differently. There's different, but you can enjoy it. It's a whole thing by itself. And, it could be challenging in some points, but there's definitely a need for it. It's very rewarding because, there's a reason why you're going to that patient's house or why they ordered it. You're helping out the doctors, like you said. Where do you see mobile? Do you see it, after this pandemic, or since we're in this pandemic, do you see an increase in mobile, or where do you see the opportunities in the sonography field?
Yes, that is such a great question, Jason. And I have seen so much. So for us, let me just talk a little bit about what happened to our actual ultrasound business, that particular division during the pandemic. We, like every other state, I think almost every other state at least, shut down, right? Nobody was doing anything. Stay at home, don't go out, don't do anything. And when we kind of opened back up, I think, and I'm in Indiana, so we were less closed, I think, than a lot of states, but we still had a lot of patients, they didn't want to go out of their house. They definitely didn't want to go to the hospital where there's a bunch of people. And a lot of them didn't even want to go to their doctor's offices. And so, we really saw that a lot of our physician clients that we were working with, they were only seeing emergent patients. But then we also saw a lot of patients that said, but I need an ultrasound and I can't get it anywhere. The hospitals weren't seeing people unless it was an absolute emergency. A lot of the doctor's offices weren't seeing people unless it was an emergency. And so I think the beauty of being a business owner, I think we had two feelings, right? One of the feelings was, oh crap, what are we going to do? Like, certainly this is going to affect our business, right? But the other thing I think that was so empowering was we have absolute complete control over how we handle the situation. Whereas I know a ton of sonographers that, I was speaking to at the time saying, I'm laid off. Like, I don't have any control over anything because my employer is the one controlling. And so for us, it was like, okay, what can we do for our community? And so we went out to not just our clients, but a ton of different offices in our community local to us. We contacted multiple hospitals and just said, hey, if you have patients that need ultrasound, we are open. We're here and we're open. And we did see a decline, of course, in the number of ultrasounds we were doing out at our physician practices, but we saw a huge uptick in the number of patients we were seeing. And so what we did was, we scheduled them far apart so that we didn't ever have any patients coming in and going out at the same time so that people felt comfortable. And we just really were able to kind of take the bull by the horns and create a scenario where we were not only helping our community, but also making sure that we were really kind of keeping, we knew some parts were going to go down, but other parts of the business could go up. And we wanted to make sure we did that so that we could still keep our employees on. We didn't want to have to, lay anybody off or any of those types of things. But I think that was such an empowering experience to know that, gosh, yeah, this is a terrible situation in a lot of ways, but we have the power as the employer to help not only our employees, but help our community out in that scenario. And I had so many people reaching out to me saying the same thing for their community. And I want to start a business because I want to be able to help. And that was so cool. That was really so cool to see.
Somebody's hearing this, they're getting excited. What's the first step to get started?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. That is a great question. What I always tell people, and I'm telling you, you will fall down a Google rabbit hole trying to Google how to start your business. I mean, you'll probably be more confused than when you had the idea in the first place, just because there's so much information. You mentioned I have a podcast. I really tried to make that podcast a ton of great free information. I like to say, I hope I'm the Google for people that are trying to figure this out, because there's so much to think about. Really looking at what type of business model you want to pursue, because honestly, there are a ton, and I'm just talking from like the sonography perspective. I mean, let alone, other modalities in imaging, but, for sonography, there are about 8 different business model options that are, kind of the main ones that you could look at. So we've got like mobile ultrasound, either in fee for service or billing ultrasound yourself. Same with a facility. You could have a self-pay facility, having people come in. You could look at getting credentialed. Gosh, there's staffing, 3D ultrasound, screening services. I've got some clients that do some cool stuff with screenings, not just like at their physician practices, but I've got some that actually partner with corporations, which helps their corporation healthcare insurance lessen that load for them. It's cheaper for them if they offer different preventive types of things to their employees. So that's a really cool thing. We don't do that at our business, but I think it's just not something that we've ever really pursued, but I think it's such a cool option. And so there's just so many different ways. So definitely looking at the type of business that you want to start and kind of honing in on that, whether it's one or a hybrid of a couple, right? Some of those go so close hand in hand. Then figuring out who that ideal client is then. So if I'm doing mobile ultrasound fee for service, my ideal client isn't just physicians in general. It's specifically the physicians that are going to be ordering the types of ultrasounds that I'm going to be providing, right? And then looking at your market, that's something that's super important. So coming up with a market analysis, figuring out how many of those physicians are local to me, as an example. What can I charge for my services? Because we definitely need to know how much revenue we're going to make in our business, what it's going to cost us to start, what are my ongoing business expenses. So kind of putting together a market analysis and some information there, and then definitely having a business plan. Making sure that you've got that all squared away and set up. And I've got, programs kind of from beginning to end with all of those things. But I think understanding first, kind of doing that research and grabbing all the information you can, and then really honing in on putting together in that kind of research phase, those few things is really, really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome that you're willing to share the insights, the information. That way, it takes that off from somebody's journey, individual journey, right? You don't have to, there's a bump down the road. We could avoid that. Just do this, right? That's amazing. So how does one register into your programs or your trainings that you offer?
Yeah. So I have a couple options. First, I always like to tell people, you got to figure out what phase of business you're in. If you are in that research phase, you really are looking at our business blueprint course. That course I actually created, I think about a year ago, because I had so many people come to me and say, Jen, I'd love to get into your Ultrasound Business Academy, right? But I'm not quite ready for that yet. And I need to figure out, who am I marketing to and how do I put a business plan together? I want to make sure this is viable before I invest in the actual startup phase of the business, right? So I love this business blueprint course, especially because I go through those 8 different business models that I talked about. So you can use this in the very beginning phase of your business, right? When you're putting everything together. But then once you start up, when you start looking to see what your community is needing, oh, okay, I'm doing mobile fee for service, but we've got a lot of people that would love for me to bill. Well, you can actually head back to that course and go through that entire process again for that specific business model. So I love that because I think it's such a good reference even after you've started your business. Those are all of our programs and everything are right on our website. And so you can go right there and kind of figure out, okay, what area am I in? Am I in the research phase where I want to put all of those basics together first? That business blueprint course is perfect. And then once people are ready, then, okay, I know this is a viable option. I've got my business plan together. I've put together a market analysis. You're ready then for the actual startup phase of the business. And so those doing mobile ultrasound fee for service, the Ultrasound Business Academy, I get so excited. I'm going to try to chill myself out because it's my absolute favorite program. It's 6 months of coaching with me. So our business blueprint is a self-study course. You can get your questions all answered inside the actual client web portal. But I love the startup phase courses, the programs, because it's actual like one-on-one coaching with me. And it's so much fun because I lay out literally step by step everything people need to do for that startup. It helps you start, grow, and operate your mobile ultrasound business. And you have lifetime access to that back-end client web portal. And then 6 months of coaching with me, which is so fun because I can lay out those step-by-step strategies, all the frameworks, all the contracts are in there, which I told you, we've spent so much money on contracts for attorneys. And because the rules and regulations are Medicare-based, these contracts then can be utilized in each state and be completely federally compliant, which is awesome. So it saves a ton of money and time. I mean, I talked about that before. You're not trying to figure out where to put all that hard work. There's literal step-by-steps. Here's exactly how to start. Here's exactly how to sell this. I even have scripts on what to say to the doctors because I know how nerve-wracking that is personally, trying to go in there and figure all this stuff out for yourself. But it's just one of my favorite programs that we have. And then those that are looking at other different business models, so like 3D, or if they're doing staffing or screening, or they're wanting to start a facility, I have strategy sessions that are really specific to those where we do a lot of one-on-one coaching with that as well. So all of that information can be found on the website, but that's where I spend most of my time in my business just because it just brings such joy to me. I absolutely love it. So much fun.
So it's good to know that, as an entrepreneur or somebody taking that, you're not alone. There's somebody
Yes.
to help you and can relate, right? Can relate. So
absolutely.
That's awesome. And I visited your website. It's very user-friendly. It's easy to navigate. And then you're also on social media, right? Instagram.
Yes.
I love your positive messages that you leave. You're pretty active on Instagram on
Yes.
stories and on posts as well. Don't hesitate to get started, right? If somebody's thinking like, get all that stuff lined up, sign up for the course and get it rolling. Ultrasound is a great modality. I don't see it going anywhere. It's definitely advancing. As you mentioned earlier, the equipment is getting smaller and better. The equipment, you help somebody, you can help somebody like navigate through that part as well, right? Yes. So what are maybe some of the challenges they could run into when it comes to maybe the equipment portion?
Sure. Yeah, no, that is a great question. We actually started our equipment division. Gosh, it's been over 10 years now, but we started that division specifically because we already had our coaching division at that time. And that amount of time ago, it was a little difficult for someone who wasn't a physician to purchase ultrasound equipment. And so we had a little bit of trouble with that part of it. We also then had trouble because then a lot of people would go onto the used market which is great. I'm not saying anything bad about that, but it's just like every other industry. There are some shady characters that don't treat you the way that you need to be treated. And so we had people that would not get the software level that they needed to be able to actually push images out. And because most of our clients were mobile, there's certain things that you had to have, especially that long ago, to be able to ensure that your DICOM images are going to get sent out where they need to go, that you had all of the software levels that you needed. We even had somebody sell one of our clients a piece of equipment and put fake a sticker on the back, like take a sticker off something else so that it looked like it was the software revision, and we couldn't figure out why stuff wasn't sending. And then they saw it kind of peeled on the side. That was our last straw. And we said, okay, how do we become vendors so that we can get all of the equipment into our office, make sure it's exactly what they need. And so that's been really cool. My business partner, Bo White, takes care of all of that. So I like to look at us like kind of a dynamic duo, right? So I am the business coach for the actual business part of it. He is the coach for the ultrasound equipment. So people aren't dealing with salespeople and trying to navigate, is this best for me? Or are they just trying to sell me a piece of equipment? So we are vendors for a lot of the major manufacturers, and he really works specifically with people finding out what exactly are you looking to do, what types of ultrasound, your budget, all of that, and then can really give them an idea of here's the best kind of fit that I see for you, and kind of walk them through all of that. We actually did a podcast because I get that question a lot, like, how does all of this system stuff work? What's the difference between like financing and leasing and all of that? I think that can trip people up a little bit. How do I get the equipment? How do I pay for it? How does all of that work? So we did do a podcast on that where I asked him a lot of in-depth questions, because some of those I don't even know the answers to, just because that's not even my wheelhouse. I will tell my clients, talk to Bo. He's the expert. He's the resident expert on all the ultrasound equipment. But I think it's really some of the things that I would mention is making sure when you're looking at equipment, because as imaging professionals, that's the funnest part, right? Most fun, whatever. But it is getting a piece of ultrasound equipment into your house when you're a sonographer is like, Christmas morning. And so a lot of times people want to get the biggest and the best and all of this when it doesn't have any diagnostic difference. So that's the biggest thing I would say to look at, is instead of looking at from your sonographer eyes, what is going to be the prettiest, most amazing machine, and looking at it from business eyes and saying, okay, does this though give me additional diagnostic quality? And if the answer is no, looking at a piece of equipment that's less expensive, still portable, so it's easy to take, if you're doing patient home, if you're doing out in other physician practices, having that portable equipment, I think is great. If people are doing facilities, we can still help with the bigger pieces of equipment as well. But I think making sure to look at those things from a business perspective is a really good idea, instead of just getting excited about the imaging equipment yourself, right?
Yeah, great advice right there. Yes, absolutely. Because, somebody just getting started might think I need all of this stuff, when really it's just like, no, maybe you could just start with this because it's just as good, or it's going to do what you need it to do.
Absolutely.
The clients need, and maybe start there, and then maybe grow.
I think another good point to make too is that a lot of what I suggest to clients, because sometimes people think the first thing I need to do for my ultrasound business is buy an ultrasound machine, right? Because that makes sense. Like, here are the things that I need. What it doesn't make sense to do that if you're starting in a capacity where you don't actually need that machine right yet, right? So like for the clients in my Ultrasound Business Academy, they are not going to actually need to use that equipment until they get their first client. And that's probably not going to be for at least 2 or 3 months from when they start, because we have a lot of back end things to do. They got to learn a lot of things, right? We do like a logo, website, business card design. They got to get all those things done before they can even go out and market to their doctors. And then that process takes a little bit of time as well. So for them to buy their machine day one and then have it sitting in their spare bedroom for 2 or 3 months, paying on it, doesn't make business sense. It makes sense to the sonographer who wants that machine in their house, right? Because they're excited, but it doesn't make business sense when you think about it. So I think that's a very good piece of advice as well, is figuring out from your business model. Now, if you're doing a facility, that's something different, right? On the day that you open and you have patients, got to have that machine in there. We made that mistake. We scheduled for our facility, we scheduled patients on the day that our machine was supposed to get delivered, and it got there in the morning. We were so excited, and it didn't have any of the probes. They forgot to put the probes in the delivery. So those are just lessons to learn by, for sure. But you don't really need it for a lot of the business models until you're actually ready to start seeing those first patients. And so understanding that part, I think, is important too, because you want that revenue you're bringing in to be covering, or at least helping to cover as you're growing, what you're paying out for the ultrasound equipment itself.
I mean, valuable information. Wow, thank you so much. And so, how did we get started in entrepreneurship? Was it something you did very young, or something you just kind of just jumped into after a while? How did that journey of being an entrepreneur begin?
Yeah, I think that I just have always wanted to do my own thing. And after I got married, I moved, and I absolutely hated my job. And I was like, this is as good a time as any, because I cannot handle this any further. It was always kind of on the edge of my mind, right? I want to start this. I think this would be great. But I think until you're kind of faced with, this is the time, right? And I think a lot of sonographers and other imaging professionals kind of get there at some point. They're like, hey, I'm sick of being on call, or, we've had new management now at our hospital or imaging center, and I'm just not for it, right? We want to do our own thing. And so that was kind of the trigger for me. And I'd always wanted to do something, like I said, kind of in the beginning of our chat here. And I knew healthcare was going to be kind of where it was going to go. And yeah, it was just kind of, I'm going to pull the trigger. And I actually quit my job. Do not recommend. Do not recommend. But I quit my job. And so I was like the person. I was everything. I was like the janitor. I was the person answering the phones. I was doing all the things. I was hustling, to get stuff done, especially not having my income from my job. And so what I usually tell my clients, I always say the stuff I tell my clients is because I have made these mistakes 50 different times. And so I can tell them from experience, don't do X, Y, or Z, right? But it really is something that you can start as a side hustle, almost, if you will. Now, if people are working 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, you may either have to look at some of the types of places that are open on the weekends, depending on what type of business model you're doing, of course, or there are so many ways to do PRN stuff, or, work, 310s or 410s or something like that at the location that you're at. So there's always ways to kind of look at doing those types of things to be able to allow a day or two during the week. If you're marketing to physician offices, you got to market to them when they're open, right? And so that's just something to look at. Now, if you're starting an imaging facility, as an example, where you're doing ultrasound or other modalities, you could look at just opening those on the weekends while you're working, and it's definitely a hustle in the beginning, for sure. But I think looking at opportunities where you're still creating a revenue stream into your family as with your current job, or kind of a hybrid of something that you were doing, maybe, like I said, doing PRN, or some different types of work that you can do at your same location that you're at. But being able to put that time in, I think, is so important. But yeah, I think it's just something, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, you'll have to tell me if this is a good observation or not, but I really feel that I've got a type A personality, and I feel like most imaging professionals also have a type A personality, right?
I agree.
A lot of us are, right?
Yes.
A lot of us are outgoing. We are always researching and studying and wanting to do our best at providing patient care, and all of those things, I think, go hand in hand with entrepreneurship. Right. And so I think that's why there are so many sonographers that reach out to me that, have that entrepreneurial spirit. I just think it's kind of ingrained in our personalities a little bit. But yeah, it was just something that I had kind of always wanted to do. And that was the kicker for me. Ready to be my own boss, no matter what that takes.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of technologists out there who somebody could just look at, oh, that's somebody else in just scrubs, but no, they're actually like doing other things, major things,
Mhm.
and a lot of side hustles. But
Yeah,
a lot of times they put the side hustles to the side and don't realize, look, maybe put a little bit more focus on that one because that
right.
one, you could really take off with that, or it has a
Absolutely.
lot of opportunities. So that's why I was super excited to have you on this
Yeah,
podcast because I see that a lot. Whether it's somebody selling, markers or just little badges, that's a start. That's
absolutely.
you're already doing something that not everybody does. You got that entrepreneur spirit already, and now just starting your own business is maybe the next step.
Yep.
So it could feel like a scary step, but
Yes.
with the risk comes rewards, right?
That is the best way to put it. And it is so true. It's so true. Because if you don't step out there, like you said earlier, you'll never know if that's something that would have worked out. And you'll only know if you actually take those leaps into those uncomfortable things. And really, it's just our mind trying to protect us, but it's not life or death. That's originally how our minds were created, right? Like life or death, fight or flight. What are we supposed to do here? But in today's world, 99.9% of situations aren't life or death. Our brain is just still wired that way, and it's trying to keep us comfortable. But really, it prevents us a lot of times from doing what we really want to do or really know that we're capable of doing. And I think that's where we just have to make that mindset shift that this is not life or death, and I can do this. I think that's just the biggest piece of advice that I can give, because you
Wow.
can. You
Yeah,
absolutely can. You can do whatever you want to do. Absolutely. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
that's awesome. Now, with self, you already have that self-doubt, right? That little voice saying, maybe
Absolutely.
you can, maybe, but really you got to overcome it. And a lot of times when you could, be around like-minded individuals, other
Yes.
entrepreneurs, it's going to push you, encourage you, rather than, just average Joe, where maybe they're afraid for you. Like, are you sure you want to
Right.
do that? Maybe it won't work out. Like, so you want to stay on the yes, I can. And so hanging
Mhm.
around with the right individuals, being around or going nowhere, knowing where to go,
Right.
right? Because Google could just take you down a rabbit hole,
Yes.
right? But like sign up for your program, your podcast, that could set somebody to the right direction, where they're not going to waste time, and time you cannot get back.
Right.
Yes. Again, I'll put all the links down at the bottom.
Thank you, Jason.
That way you could find Jennifer, and looking forward to what you're doing and what you got planned for the future as well. We could talk forever. I would
I
love to.
know. This has been so much fun.
This is
So I have three. If we're ready to wrap up, I'll leave people with 3 tips.
okay.
3 tips
Perfect.
for starting their business. So I've shamelessly plugged myself already, but hire a coach, right? Because like I said in the beginning, I have started a business without one. It is hard if you don't have a coach or start something as a franchise, knowing what to do and just wasting a lot of time and a lot of money. Having someone tell you, here is exactly where you need to be spending all of your time and effort is priceless. So having that exact framework to follow is so important. The other thing is spending the right time on the right tasks. And we kind of touched on this a little bit. A lot of the things that build our business are those uncomfortable things. And so because our brain is trying to keep us comfortable, we may work 20 hours a day on our business, but if it's on the wrong things for the phase of business we're in, we are going to wonder why we're not getting anywhere. And it's because we're working on the wrong things. So if you are trying to build a business, you need to be working on business building tasks. And those are always the most uncomfortable ones. So things like sales calls, so meeting with your physicians or having sales calls with your potential clients, whatever business model you're doing. Speaking, so direct interaction with your audience. So whether that is something that you're doing out at, as an example, I've done different speaking engagements at like medical group management association things that they've had, right? So I'm speaking to my actual ideal clients. You could do this online too. So if you did Instagram lives or Facebook lives or LinkedIn lives, where you're actually interacting with your audience, answering their questions and those types of things. Vendor booths is another one because you're interacting with people that are potentially clients of yours, right? Giving your information and networking either online or offline with your ideal clients. Those are really the main business building tasks, and there's not very many of them, but it's always putting yourself out there, which is the most uncomfortable part. So when I see people not building their business the way that they want to be or as quickly as they want to be, that's always my first question is, what are you spending your time on? And a lot of times it's the marketing tasks, right? It's the stuff we can do easily behind the scenes, like creating posts on Instagram and posting things on LinkedIn, which are important. We need to be doing those to create awareness of our business, but those aren't business building tasks that are going to get us money now or in the immediate future. So that is a huge tip. And then we talked about this already. My last tip is understanding that you have what it takes to actually do it. Those little voices in your head telling you you can't, you got to push them aside. And like you said, Jason, that was such a great point of surrounding yourself with like-minded people, because I had so many people trying to tell me when we were looking at starting our business, well, are you sure? Are you sure that's a great idea? What if it doesn't work? And you have to just stop talking to those people about the potential business you're starting, because I mean, that can wreak havoc on your mindset, because your mind's already going to do that for you. So I think those are the three kind of biggest tips on what to do if you're looking to start your business or you have your own business. And it's just been such a pleasure being on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it.
So, wow.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Jennifer Lindsey, again, ultrasound business coach. You could tune in on her podcast, Talking Tech Podcast, Sonographer's Guide to Entrepreneurship. What's the best way to reach out to you if somebody is trying to reach out to you?
Absolutely. Well, come follow me on Instagram. I try to do a lot on stories. I try to do a lot of informational posts and training posts and those types of things. I've been a little lax in the summer. My son goes back to school in a couple of weeks, so there will be a lot more posts after that too. But yeah, come find me on Instagram. It's Advanced Imaging Inc. And yeah, come kind of look at all of that information. The podcast is a great way to get a lot of, general information about what you're probably trying to Google. So definitely come there, but you can DM me over on Instagram and we can chat about any of the programs or any questions that people have about that over there. It's a great way to reach me.